Good morning.
It's me, and it's gorgeous outside. It's beautiful, it's cold, it's crisp. It's about 40 degrees. Yesterday there was ice on the windows. Today there's not, but it's autumn and the little leaves are just falling. It's just beautiful. We are in the most spoiled place. Yes. We are definitely spoiled in northern Michigan. We have the seasons are upon us. And with the seasons, of course, everybody knows that I'm a leaf and pumpkin person. But winter is fast approaching, and I'm really aware of it. That's going to get cold. By Friday, we're going to drop down to our first freezing way down in the 30s. And so I'm hustling to get everything in and everything done. And in the middle of that, I know Sunday sermon really talked about sitting down and pausing with the moment with your family and making Yeshua, making Jesus priority one in your life. First and foremost, he has to be the priority. He has to be first and foremost. He has to be foremost. A necessity is what Zechariah says in the Amplified Version. And that's the Greek. A necessity. Foremost necessity. So when I woke up this morning, I jumped in the shower and I saw this tiny little spot of mold, on one of the white grouts. I saw this little dark spot just starting. And I thought, I'm going to have to zap that with bleach. That's like, I can just see that little touch of mold. And I heard the Holy Spirit say, bleach. You better get your bleach. Cleaning products are going to be difficult to find. I went, oh my gosh. So I'm giving you the word that the Lord spoke to me, and he directs my every day. I wake up with them totally. And he tells me what I need to do, I'm like, just one more thing on my list. Laundry detergent, making sure I have in some extra, making sure I have some extra bleach or cleaning supplies. Some of you can laugh that God talks to me like that. But he tells me what I need to do every day of my life. And there have been days I didn't listen. And because of that, I suffered the consequences of it. And down the line, I thought, why didn't I pick that up? Why didn't I get that? I can remember going to a garage sale, and there was a Shirley Temple doll, original. And it was small. It was about, 10 inches high. Maybe a little less, but about 10 inches, maybe 9 inches. And it was $7.50. Mint perfect condition. And I looked at this doll, and this doll is a collector. The whole garage sale had gotten rid of their 1930s through 1960 collection of games, toys, dolls, itsy bitsies, turn your eyeball dolls, bend your head, wetsy betsies. I don't know what they used to call them. But mint condition, all jointed dolls. And I picked up a couple, one for 50 cents. I turned around and sold it quite well back in my idiot days when I shouldn't have sold those things. But I had a collection going. And this collection stood between me and God because I valued it and esteemed it higher on this earth. I didn't want to leave it, which means it had become a treasure on earth. Not a treasure in heaven to lay up. It was an earthly treasure. And I had some vintage Santa Clauses. You cannot find these. And I think I shared a fireman that actually you twisted it, the metal, and it climbed up the ladder, all jointed metal. I had a train, the caboose, not the caboose, the engine. Black original. I mean, this is Lionel. This is stuff you just don't find. But this garage sale was so incredible. But I looked at the Shirley Temple doll, and I thought, I don't want to pay $750. That's too much. Now, mind you, this is like 15 years ago. This is just too much. I mean, I'm cheap. And so out of all the things I picked up, I passed her up. Then I went home and I Googled back then. I researched it and it was $1,500 value. So I ran back to the sale only to find that it was gone. Of course. That's how I remember. That was one of my training times that the Lord was training me that I needed to pay attention when he impressed on me to pick something up. Good morning.
Good morning.
I started without you.
I know. I'm glad you did. I had to get my son to school and had to get my son to school and we made so last week my son had off. He homeschools, but he goes to a homeschool program and they took a week off, which was great because we had a lot of stuff to do around the house and we got stuff done. And so I was focused on that. Well, I don't know, but he said it's because we had a week off. I pulled in here and forgot to take him to school and went, oh, he goes, Mom, we have to go. So I'm a little late. I'm sorry.
I'm not. I'm on time.
And I was up at 6:30.
What's my hair look like? It doesn't have a big slice in the middle or anything.
No, you look good.
Okay.
I was up at 6:30 this morning, and I feel like I'm all. But I was up. I had stuff done. I even made breakfast for my husband before I left the door. So I just chuckle because I'm like, I was on time, but
I told him when God speaks to me, like, pick up your bleach and your cleaning supplies extra.
Obey.
Yes. Obey.
No, that's because God does the same thing to me a lot. He told me to get my baked goods in for Thanksgiving and different things. And now they're talking like, there's not going to be anything. Guess what? Jass's Home Bakes is fully stocked, ready to go.
She's still
I can make
selling.
you whichever you need. I was laughing about that.
She didn't get marshmallow cream.
Marshmallow cream and evaporated milk. That is my go-to this week is I got to get those two products. I've done pretty good on everything else. So
this is my first time I saw a store that was being affected by the shortages.
Well,
I haven't seen that in Northern Michigan. Okay, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
But I don't go into the stores either. But this was shock therapy, so it's probably been a few weeks since maybe 3 weeks since I've been in to Save a Lot. And I'm not paying attention until this week. And I was surprised at, when they unloaded their truck, there were 2 kinds of potatoes, but very few bags out. Like, I only found 1 kind of potato, and there were 3 bags on the shelf. Wow. I noticed the produce, the quality, and what's available. Mm-hmm. I went down the chip aisle. There were no potato chips when the aisle I went down. There was a whole empty freezer.
Yeah.
And they had stacked it up in another freezer. And then there was another freezer that was almost empty. And then I looked. When they did stack a shelf, it wasn't like 3 deep. It was 1.
Yeah.
And so I went through a little shock therapy, and they had revamped the store. They got rid of 4 aisles, and the front of the store, the lobby of the store is huge.
Huge.
And they took down the top shelf where you'd have to reach up, and they brought it way down so that in fact, at the time, there were loading shelves. The groceries were shoulder and under.
Yep.
Now there's a couple things at this eye level, just this eye level. And I thought, okay, but plenty of meat, plenty of cheese, plenty of dairy. And I walked through, but the other things. So guess what I'm buying next besides my bleach and my laundry supplies?
What?
I am getting masa harina.
What's mozzarella?
It's a flour that you make tortilla shells from.
Oh, that's cool. So
in
you can make your own.
case taco shells don't come in from Mexico, or there's a shortage on corn flour, or I don't get tacos. I have to have a good taco. And I know what to do with masa harina shells, and I have the little presses that make homemade tacos.
I think what's hard is that we have our culture. We don't have, like, a lot of cultures have their own foods. We don't really have our own American food. We have ham. We have
Bacon.
we have ethnic foods. We have a lot of ethnic foods, and because of that, we live on the ethnicity of a lot of
Think
this
about
stuff.
rice. You know where rice comes from? I know there's a company like in Minnesota or something like that too. But think about the price of rice and its
Yeah.
longevity. This is
Yeah.
longevity food.
Yeah.
Do we grow our own black beans? Well, you have to have a really good garden to grow your own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this year, our garden produced enough for me to make pepper jelly, canned dill pickles, and eat some freshable tomatoes. The rest I just picked up. But if I had to have my garden sustain me,
No.
I'm not ready for that. I truly am not ready, and I'm not into hoeing. Nick to hoe with his back, and we're just not into it. So, in saying that, we're doing everything above the ground,
Trying to.
but try to grow enough.
To grow enough is.
Did you know I have a garden in my house now this winter?
Mm-hmm.
I am growing lettuce inside. In the windows, all terracotta pots in my very large sun windows, and herbs and green onions, and yeah.
So I'm coming over
Dill.
if I need anything. That's what
So
you. That's
that's
what you
kinda
do
what
as a kid. You know, you
Mooch
could just
off
come
your
over and
mother.
mooch off your parents. Who cares that I'm an adult and been on my own for 25 years? I'm
Mom,
coming
you
over
got
to
lettuce? I need some for my tacos. Yes. So I start planting my garden indoors. It gets planted this week. And so I don't know what that's going to look like. I've never done this. All you people out there, all you men and women can come along for the ride with me.
I have never stored so much stuff right now for my business. To be very careful. It's because this is my biggest season. That's why. Normally it wouldn't really be a big issue, but this is my biggest season, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I know.
You need some of her fudge. But
So-
she also knows you have to be afford it. You have to be able to afford it. And so we talked a lot. We talked about what it's going to cost for gas and what it's going to cost to plow a driveway.
Yeah.
We discussed.
We've had some really hard discussions about it. It's I think what's hard is when you're selling a product or you're doing a service for somebody, it's very difficult to really you don't want to raise your prices. You don't want to, but you don't have a choice because of the cost, and you can't do it for free. And the other part of that is the cost of everything right now has gone up so much. I saw a list yesterday that gas went up 46%.
We're not going to, just so you know this.
Blows my brain.
We're not going to charge people according to what goes up in price. When we run out, we run out.
No,
That's how we're going to do. We're going to still be affordable.
We're going to be
do what we can
affordable.
do.
Do what we can do, and then when it's gone, it's gone.
It's gone. That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
And because we know you're not getting a raise on your wages.
We may not be able to make as much, but we will still be able to make some.
So if you're getting a
And
pie, a
so-
homemade pie, what are your pies?
They're $15, and I have.
kind?
Oh my goodness! I pretty much pumpkin, apple, and you can have them with Dutch toppings if you want, or the regular pie topping. I have peach, I have blueberry, and I have cherry. They're all 15 a piece except for the apple. The apple's 20 because I'm making my own apple stuff.
Yeah,
I'm
she's
doing my
fine.
own apple.
And apples are $30 a bushel.
Yeah, so
And you got to peel them, you got to slice
a lot of
them,
work.
you got to do, and I'm helping her do all the pre-fillings.
Yep.
And it is a lot of work.
And I've got pictures online. You can go on to my Jastelyn, my Facebook, and you can see Jasta's Home Bakes. It's on there. And I actually I already have them printed out. I'm going to have them here at the church on Sunday. But it's like a little order form that you can fill out what you want, give it back to me, and you'll get a little card that tells you where you're going to pick up your pie and what time. Like I have an actual set. This is when your pie is going to be available. You pick it up here at the church on Wednesday night before Thanksgiving. So I have it all, like we have it all planned and all kind of figured out.
Why are these sparkle lights on?
I don't know.
They've been left on since Sunday.
Oh, I don't know.
Dead batteries.
Yeah,
we're really conservative.
Sorry.
Okay, your batteries. Let's talk about this. Okay. If you have flashlights, get your batteries in now.
Oh, and a good place to get them and pretty decent. Costco wasn't too bad. We went and got
everything and the components for the batteries. What's in the warehouse is in the warehouse. To make new ones, certain components of copper and zinc and different things, it comes from China.
Yeah.
The factory is going to not be able to make some things. Now, I don't even want to talk about this. This is
it's not been fun to talk about, but we've had to be really honest about some things and just really look at it and like, okay. You know, and I told my mom, I said, Mom, I can tell you, we don't have a 2-year supply of nothing. I don't think anything other than food. I'm sure we could live on what we have because we don't eat much.
But what happens after 2 years? Just so you know this, the government's holding back the shipping.
Yeah, they're doing this on purpose.
It's holding back the shipping. Okay, we know there's 500,000 shipping containers as of 2 weeks ago, setting in the harbor in California. Not the East Coast. This is just the West Coast. Just
yeah,
Long
but even
Island
Florida has said, bring your stuff here. We'll unload it. We're available, and yet you don't see any movement.
There's no movement. So they're stuck, and they're holding it. They're not getting them on the trucks. All the trucks are lined up. They're not putting nothing on them.
This is a control issue. How do you get people under control?
Well,
you
they said if you don't vax, we don't give you food.
You know what's amazing?
Yeah.
Now, that might work with some people. But to somebody who doesn't look at you as their source, but God is my source.
The human.
You're not my source. He is. And I've never seen,
by the way.
I've never seen his seed forsaken or begging for bread.
And do you know what? We're givers.
Exactly.
We're givers. And I know how to bake bread.
I'm not.
Somebody said
I
you
ain't
gotta
worried
have
about
flour.
it.
Did you know what? God will multiply when
He'll
I give. He will multiply my product. How do I know this?
We've seen him do it.
We've seen him do it. We had a cookie shortage of 250 cookies.
Our cookie miracle.
That we were giving away. And guess what? They appeared.
In the bowl.
The bowl never ran out.
Mm-hmm.
Never ran out, and it filled all the boxes. We were supposed to be 250 cookies short. They never ran out. She filled all the boxes, plus it had the same amount of cookies.
Yeah.
When I freaked out. And then Kim and Dave, when they went to Guatemala last time, they went in with $1,100. And they knew what they had spent. They should have 7 left. And they'd spent $400. And they saw a roof that needed repaired. And they thought, we don't have enough to do that. We want to, because a hurricane had taken it out. And the family was just sleeping under the sky. And as she counted, now I might have this story wrong. She began to, Dave said, count your money. The Lord just said, buy that. She goes, we don't have enough for that. Count it. He said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. All the money they had spent was returned to them. and they had enough to do the roof.
Yep.
Talk about the miraculous. That is what you're going to see.
Yeah.
You're going to see that you made soup and you just added some more water to the soup, and it's absolutely perfecto.
And it went right where it needed to go.
And that is what we're trusting God for and believing God for.
Yeah.
You know, we have a food pantry that we don't have a food pantry. But yet, we feed hungry people still.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, we still give out. We just don't have a USDA food pantry.
Yeah.
People will give us eggs. People will call and say, hey, I need to bring you fresh vegetables. I have extra from my garden. Can you give them out? Yes. So we divvy them up, and I call people and say, you said you needed fresh vegetables? Some just came in.
But this is really about the church being the church. If you look at the early church, the government was controlling, the government was evil. The government was not the source for the people. They weren't. The Romans looked to the Romans to be their source, but the Christian church didn't look to the Romans to be their source, because they knew the Romans were their enemies.
I do not want.
And the early church was the ministry. They ministered, hands extended, boots on the ground, to the people. The beginnings of orphanages started with the church.
Yeah.
It started when
St. Luke's,
Good
Good
all
Samaritan,
the hospitals began.
St. Jude. Yeah.
Hospitals began because of the church, not because of the state, not because of the government.
Right.
And so the church needs to get back to being the church.
Healing rooms. Oh, yeah.
The storehouse, the church was meant to be the storehouse. They brought in, if you look back in Acts, they brought so much stuff into the storehouse at one point. They were like, you guys were busting at the seams. We don't have any space.
First of all, I
People
don't
brought
want
their
all your
extra.
clothes.
And they gave out from it.
I don't want all their clothes here.
No, we can't. No.
I don't
Clothing
have
we can't
storage place for it.
do.
But we have had some people call me and say, Pastor, it's all new. It's not junk. And I went, okay, then bring it. We'll hang it up in the closet. On Sunday, I will make mention. Women and men can go out and look at it and take it. What isn't,
We have
taken.
taken some very new things that were for children, like boots, hats, things that were meant for, and we've set them aside sometimes for families for Christmas.
we have
Things like
also
that.
taken new coats, and we've taken new women's clothing. There are times I do not want men's suits.
No, people don't wear suits anymore.
They don't wear them. Okay. And so I do not want, the
So
look of Chippendales,
we're-
put it that way.
We're particular because there's no one to give it to. That's
we
why
have
we're
to be
particular.
careful
We have
what
to be
we're taking,
particular.
but it has to be in good shape. And other people are sending me money. We'll take it.
Yeah.
We'll take your money. Do you know why we'll take your money? Is because we have some widows that we want to make sure
have
that
Thanksgiving.
they have Christmas this year.
Yep.
So this year is really a little more focus on widows and orphans. I call them orphans, but if they're fatherless, I want to pay attention to some things, and we're doing that. We are doing that. We're looking at Thanksgiving and Christmas, and we're sitting down with certain people to discuss it. We don't avoid these subjects. We know they're there.
Yeah.
So one day the Lord had told me, this is a long time ago, he told me, one day you'll make soup and bread. Remember that?
Oh yeah. Yep.
So it'll be done in canning jars. And so that's what I'm looking at, is canning jars, white lidded, to send somebody home soup and a loaf of homemade bread. And then they bring back the jar and fill it. I know that sounds far out, but that will be my future call, and God will supply it. And so I'm excited for what the Lord has in store for us. Until Jesus comes, we will do
Occupy.
the work of the Lord and occupy till he comes.
Exactly. That's just the
Oh,
point.
what are we
will
speaking
do it.
on today?
Today we're talking about seasons, and we're in this is a weird season we're in. But, the things I've learned about the seasons of our lives, everything that I learned that God did before, when we go through something now and we struggle, through something or we see something, all it does is solidify. God always met my need there. He will meet it here. Even in this tough season I went through, this is nothing for God. He still has it. He dealt with it then, and I thought I was going to die. I mean, there were seasons of my life that were so difficult that I didn't know I was going to make it. I mean, it was that severe. And I look now and I just say, God, you see this season that we're in, and I'm just going to trust you because that's all I know how to do. And I think because of what we went through, we trust him even more now. So the seasons that you go through, I think there's incredible lessons. So if you can go back and look at those times of your life and really look at the lessons that you learned. So we talked about young childhood. We talked about adolescence a little bit, your teenage years. I think your teen years are incredibly important because those are really the years that kind of solidify some things in you. We talked about early adulthood. I mean, my husband and I were just going into ministry in early adulthood. We were adults and yet we were still kids. And we talked about womanhood and coming into womanhood, and you're the mom and you're making house and those things. We wanted to talk about being a toddler mom, what it was like when you started having babies.
What it's like to discipline. But today we're going to talk about
But you had something the Lord
a generation of accountability.
Yeah.
That the season of accountability no longer exists.
No, the Lord, today I was driving when I was taking Ben to school, and the Lord told me, he says, the reason why accountability doesn't exist is there's the entire generation we're dealing with right now is fatherless.
Well, and
they don't understand.
They were allowed in Minnesota.
Fatherhood.
Is it Minnesota? Where they were allowed to trash the streets. There was no accountability for stealing or breaking into a store or burning down a town.
Nope.
No accountability, and not only no discipline, but no law enforcement and no retribution and no punishment fits the crime.
But all of those things are part of fatherhood. They're actually more a part of fatherhood than motherhood. They are the quintessential things that a father does in his role in the family. He sets the tones, he sets the rules, he sets the woman sets the atmosphere, but the man sets the rules and the laws. And yet there was none of that in our nation, and that's because we're fatherless. We've allowed the generation of these young people to be raised without dads. And they don't respect authority because they don't understand authority. To them, you're trying to squash me. One of the things I heard yesterday was, this is why I hate the church, because they're just judgmental. Listen, people. This is not about judgment. Let me tell you what judgment looks like. Judgment is when I compare you to me. But when I compare what the situation is to the Word of God, that is not false judgment that Jesus was saying not to judge. He was saying not to judge like this. But taking it back to the Word is, if you're spiritual, you will judge spiritually. And I got upset because I said, wait a minute, you're going to quote that scripture at me? Then let me quote the rest of the Word at you. Because the rest of the Word says, if we're spiritual, we're going to judge spiritually. If something is wrong, it is wrong.
Either we stick to this,
or we say we have nothing,
or we lose everything.
Yeah.
If the Word isn't the final say concerning your sexuality, concerning your thoughts, concerning your family, concerning marriage, concerning the integrity of your business.
Yep.
If it's not the final say, you're in deep hockey pucks.
And the minute you compromise. So I want to say, back at the beginning of the COVID stuff, back at the beginning of 2020, when all that stuff happened with George Floyd and all the stuff and all the BLM and all this, what you were talking about, the streets being all crazy and the rioting and stuff and the chaos, I saw so many Christian men, mostly men, not women,
themselves.
align themselves with a political bandwagon, a social bandwagon. They had no idea that that bandwagon was from hell. They had no idea what they were involved
And
in.
it has a demonic base to it.
Demonic
of
roots.
witchcraft.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it does. We traced it all the way
And
down.
they got on this bandwagon thinking they were going to fix the wrongs of society
Culture.
and culture.
Woke.
Wait a minute. Nothing is going to fix our culture but this.
Jesus.
But Jesus and the word. That is the word, Jesus. He is the word. That's what's going to fix anything. It's not going to be some social bandwagon we hop on. So I really lost a lot of
Respect.
I lost some respect with, and it took me a bit to realize, you know what it is? These people, their ministry runs a lot of times on billions of dollars. They got coming in millions, possibly billions. And they feel like if something goes wrong in society, they're going to be the ones losing. Here's the problem. The fear of man is a snare. When you fear what's going on, that somehow you're going to lose, you're not trusting God anymore. You're trusting people for your
paycheck.
paycheck.
You know this. We totally are against police violence toward people. We are 100% against stalking people, following people, set up speed traps, abuse, prison systems that are criminal. I'm against it all.
And the sad part is, I've seen it up here.
Word
We've seen it up here in the
stands.
small towns, and it has nothing to do with your skin color.
It has
everything
I don't care
to
if
do
you're
with
pink, white, or blue.
No, but it has to do with the heart of the person.
Yes.
What I have seen is I have seen corruption, and this doesn't mean that I don't support our police. I absolutely do.
Absolutely.
But what I don't support is when they use their authority and they take their power for granted and they twist it. And what's happened is they've twisted it, and then our young people don't trust them because they've seen you're twisted. Well, they're the problem. And this happened even with my daughter, and I'm like, I don't even know what to say because they've hurt themselves.
They followed her home and pulled her over repeatedly for nothing because she was working late and closing a store.
Because she's young and she's got to be doing something wrong. We're going to catch her.
I can remember being on a city council, and I had to deal with drugs in a police department. And I found butcher knives in my tree.
Mm-hmm.
Not little butcher. I'm talking, I'd never seen a knife blade that was 18 inches long. I'm talking the threats.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Because you were messing with people.
Because you stand for righteousness.
Yep.
And so the season we're in right now is a season where there is no accountability.
No.
The government, it comes from the top down. We don't have to be accountable to the people. We can cheat the election. We can cheat their lives. We can take their income. We can tax their food and tax their soap and tax their car and tax their hunting license.
And first of all, this goes right up to the Supreme Court because they have the authority.
They did not stand.
They did not stand. They have the authority in our land to do something, and they have done nothing. Our military has the authority to do something, and they've done nothing.
They could have stood. The military could have ordered it, martial law. We had a president. Okay, let's just be real. We had a president that didn't do what he needed to do.
Nope.
When you stand for righteousness, and don't tell me Donald Trump stood for righteousness in every area. He didn't in every area.
No, he compromised.
But he did not stand. Oh, yes, we had a corruption in the military. There is good and there is bad in Congress. Good and bad in the Senate. Good and bad in all the elected officials, including the military, the judges, the whole system. But if the righteous don't stand and they back down,
exactly,
there's no accountability then. you want to do what you want to do, well, go ahead. If it feels good, you can do it. Yes, and in the end, your freedom is lost because you did not stand. So accountability. As a young person, if they see no accountability for crimes committed against the Americans, if they don't see it, and the military doesn't stand for your freedom, and the government don't stand for your freedom, where is the accountability, and how do the youth perceive it? How do young adults perceive life with no accountability?
Well, I'll tell you, my daughter graduated last year and she moved out on her own and really walked into adulthood. She's 20 years old. And I will tell you that we've had this conversation. She does not see justice in the world. And she's right, because I don't either. None. When someone is wronged, nothing is ever recompensed with it. It is allowed to be wrong. The person who did wrong is allowed to stay wrong and do what they want to do, and say what they want to say, and do what they want to do, and nothing is ever made right. And what it has done to her as a young person and the people that are around her, because I've heard them talk about some of this, is they don't respect police. They simply try to keep their nose out of the way and just, I don't know I'm trying to figure out how to word this.
Actually avoid town.
They avoid going into town because of the police.
Boyne City.
They avoid.
I know people that in the past avoided East Jordan.
Yep.
I know people that will say, don't stop in Flint.
Yep.
Don't stop in Detroit.
And not
Too
because
dangerous.
the town is bad, but because you will crisscross a police officer at some
Or
point,
criminal activity or
there's
something.
this
Now-
or that.
Now, can I say that openly? Some of you just that are local went, woo, what's in Boyne City or East Jordan or whatever? There was a time years ago that people would report that they were targeted in East Jordan. Now
Yep.
I've seen them report they're targeted in Boyne City.
Yep.
Now I've seen people report that go to the speed limit. Be careful if a police officer's following you. Make sure. Some of them pull into parking lots and park until the police officer goes by them. That's the fear. Have you ever seen? It used to be a time,
Yeah.
a police officer was your friend.
Well, yeah, and as long as you weren't breaking the law, you were good. But what do you do when you're not doing something wrong?
But
and
what
they're
if
still
you don't
following
know
you?
that there is no accountability if you are mistreated?
Exactly.
It will be like, oh, you probably deserved it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And so in saying that, now I don't know Petoskey and I don't know Gaylord. Haven't heard those things. But when you're followed around or you're targeted, and we know this personally, we've heard it from different people.
Well, we've gone through it with my
They're
daughter, too.
fearful.
Yeah.
They're fearful. They avoid, and if they do go downtown, everything is, they look at their speed the entire time.
Mhm.
I've had them change streets so that they would not go down
It's
a main
actually-
street.
It's a type of violation. When I was in school and I was going through what I was going through and being bullied in the schools, and then I was actually
by
being
the school system.
I was being assaulted in the schools, physically, emotionally, and sexually. They were doing some things. And so I was going through all of this stuff. And my mom went to a counselor and said, I found my daughter's mapping her way home every day, and she's going different routes. And he said, that is a rape victim's mentality. It's how do I keep myself from being raped?
How do I keep myself safe
How do I keep
in a
myself safe?
system that
So
feels that there's no accountability?
Exactly. And so now you got somebody who's mapping their way through a town and going down. It's the same mentality. I don't feel safe because the people who should make me feel safe are the ones, they excuse their problems and they're not accountable to anybody.
I can remember going to the
So-
principal in Boyne City School. Oh, some of you, your dander might have just gone up because I mentioned the town. Yeah, because Boyne City has changed their school system. Now, I am sure.
They're still doing it. I just got wind last week that there is in the elementary school, there's a young boy. He's in first grade. I won't name names, but he's been being kicked and punched, leaving bruises by a student. The teachers have excused it, and so has the principal.
Well, I'm telling you this. As
hasn't changed
pastors,
at all.
we hear the stories. We hear
Yeah.
many different stories. In school, they said, well, maybe she deserved it. I remember saying to them, they're threatening to put pencils up her vagina. And they said, oh, I'm sure she's doing something to aggravate it. And then I said, I'd like to move her to the front of the class. And they said, for what now? What now, Mrs. Mose? So we ended up homeschooling. She was the first homeschool student being pulled out of the public school in Boyne City. Now, we have Charlevoix, we have East Jordan, we have Boyne Falls. We have things happening all over the place in northern Michigan. Gaylord, Petoskey.
And like we said,
Levering,
because
Traverse City, I
and-
hear the stories,
and we hear the stories. We hear from the parents. They've called the school. They're angry. They're dealing with
why
beyond
are you
the mask
teaching
mandates.
my kid? Why are you teaching my kid this type of sexuality or oral sex? Why are you teaching that to my second grader? And what happens is the level of accountability from the school board,
to the parents.
from the
There's no-
to
there's-
the parents. We
they're
don't
not
have to be
accountable.
accountable, and it's not just that. So
Yeah.
I'm not just picking. I know some of you just went, woo, they're hitting some tough subjects. This is the view. No, it's not. This is the word.
Yeah.
And what I understand most of all, if there's no accountability in the presidency, it dwindles down. There's no accountability in the Supreme Court. There's no accountability in the judicial system. There's
Yeah.
no accountability from the Congress or the senators. There's no accountability from the governors. There's no accountability for school teachers, maybe. I mean, there's some good, okay, just so you know this. We have good teachers. We have some really good ones. And we have some, there's no accountability to the parent. But if there's no accountability from the dad who no longer is home, and we have fatherless children.
Yeah.
Now we look at our kids. So this is really what we're trying to say. We're looking at our kids. I'm looking at the corruption from this level all the way down.
Mm-hmm. And what do the young people see?
Uh-huh.
They see the corruption.
Uh-huh.
So you're telling them you need to pay your taxes and abide by the laws and you'll prosper. And they're looking at it going,
My
how?
taxes are going to increase.
How?
To 60%. How
You
do
got
I make
you got
my
a
ends meet?
20-year-old young lady living on her own, trying to make a living and get on her own feet and be an adult and be responsible and work 80 hours a week, and you went from taxing her 30% to 60%?
I'm going to let you
And
know
yet you're
this.
telling them that somehow they're, it's their duty and it's the accountability. It is soured for these young people. My heart goes out to the 20-somethings. When I was 20-something, that was a tough range in my life. I was beginning a family. Matt and I were trying to build our home. We were trying to have our kids and have a life. I can't even fathom what the 20-somethings right now are going through.
Well, if you
I
read,
just-
so remember we're in
Ooh.
this study here in Ecclesiastics. And go ahead, Jasta.
Verse 7.
Verse 7 through 9.
There's a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. What profit remains for the worker from the toil? I have seen the painful labor and exertion and miserable business which God has given to the sons of men, with which to exercise and busy themselves.
Just so you know this. when you toil all day and you have nothing left to show. And you're getting to a place of hopelessness. God still sees it all.
He does.
And I believe he will recompense and this is Ecclesiastes chapter 3. There is a time to love and a time to hate. I hate this time. See, I hate this season. I hate what I see happening to the people. And the underdog.
I hate the unrighteousness and the fact that our government has become so corrupt. I mean, it was corrupt for a long time.
The swamp was
the
there.
swamp has been there, but the swamp is so full of corruption that it is overflowing its banks and pushing its corruption into everything else. And yet, what I hate to see is that our young people who are just starting out in life are trying to get their bearings. And instead of giving them a break and kind of pushing them forward and helping them succeed, we're going to take more from them to what? Have them end up miserable in their toil. They have nothing left and they commit suicide.
Okay.
That's my concern.
Let's go here for a
I don't
half
want
second.
them to get depressed.
We all know they're organ harvesting babies from live babies. That's public news. Public news. This isn't a hidden news. This is mainstream Fox News, public news. You can find it, and it's been being done. So we want to look at China's organ harvesting.
Makes my stomach turn.
Okay,
Oh.
from human prisoners. We've been doing it from human babies. And we don't think the judgment of God is going to come on our nation?
No.
Yeah. Somebody said, is this judgment from God? God, nothing is bypassing him. When his cup of wrath gets full.
But judgment from God, I think we misunderstand judgment from God. We expect judgment from God that he's just going, I'm so upset about this. That's not what judgment from God looks like. The Bible gave us choices. Blessing and cursing. Right and wrong. Sow this, you reap that. Whatever we're reaping, we sowed it. The judgment of God is in the fact that he said, if you do this, this will be the outcome.
Did you know one of the news articles? This was I thought it was a Fox News. Maybe it was MSNBC or something. I have no clue anymore. But 45,000 children are missing that came across the borders that they can't track any longer because the system has picked them up for sex trafficking. It has picked them up for pedophilia. It has taken them as they have come in. And I was looking at this. I'm like, you can't locate 45,000 children or minors? Where? Okay. And so then I have to stop and I have to say, God, you see all this. There isn't anything escaping his eyes. Somebody said, judgment needs to come sooner. I can tell you this. There are some scriptures about the wrath of God. When the cup gets full, it pours out. Yep. He will pour out his wrath during the tribulation.
Sowing and reaping always takes time. Eventually, we sow so much, it will reap.
We wonder why there's no workers at Subway. No teenagers willing to work.
There isn't any. We killed an entire generation.
60 million. Where are they?
Yeah.
That's what your dad says.
We taught men to not be accountable as a dad. You can go and have sex and create a baby and kill it.
And now we reap
what we sowed.
What we've sowed. You know, I look at the government. I look at the corruption. There was no accountability put in place. Obama switched out generals and military. He knew who to put in power. Who was corrupt, who stood, who didn't. Which judicial governments or governors and which judicial
and if you think he's still
that need to be put in place.
And Obama's still involved. He's still got his hands in all this. He's still the puppet master on that one.
When I look at this,
Mhm.
I have two choices. I can either be solely depressed,
Mhm.
just, oh God, what is going to happen to our nation? Or I can recognize, Father, I thank you. The coming of the Lord is nigh, and you will recompense it all.
Yep.
All of it.
It will.
You will judge it all. You see it all. I can do nothing because I'm this little peon. I can only stand or speak where I have a platform.
Yeah.
But I can pray. And God, you hear my prayers. They zoom quickly. I love that fireball. Whew, straight to the heart of God. And that's where I'm at. And people are praying. People are praying. People are praying. They've already repented. That's over. Really. I'm not repenting for this nation any longer because it has to change. I'm at the place, I've already prayed, God, change this nation, change us. I'm at the place, God, deliver us. God, deliver us. Cause and expose the unrighteousness to be seen clearly and pull them out of power, God. Replace with righteousness. God, send us the revival of repentance in our hearts and lives. That we're right with you because Yeshua, Jesus is coming. I will not forget it. We will not live and we will not preach another doctrine. We know he's coming. I'm just letting you know this. There's a song, if it had not been for the Lord on my side, tell me, where would I be? Where would I be? So I'm letting you know this. Sorry, once in a while we get an emergency, Even Sunday, you saw some people move. You saw activity, and people are going like, what's going on? They were rescuing somebody that had fell. And they had to leave and go. She had managed to get to a telephone and call. And they were able to rescue an elderly woman and get her back up. And it's just what you do. But had it not been for the Lord on my side, right?
Yeah, sorry. I was being texted by the worship leader. Like, okay. Sorry, we have worship practice night. My brain just went
Apparently
into mode.
hers wasn't an emergency.
No, sorry.
But without God, without prayer, I covet your prayers. I covet your prayers. Please pray for us. Please pray for Jordan Rivers. I'm so excited what God is doing. I'm so excited what he does in us and how he will use us. And even the days that lie ahead, this is the last days. How will we minister? How will we operate? Yes, there'll be food in the house. Yes, we will make sure and take care of people as much as we can. And so, if you want to send me money, go for it. I'll take Christmas money now because I have to disperse. I have to look at the needs. But God is so gracious. He's so good, and so he's abiding forever. And I'm going to let you close in prayer. Yes, you're 5 minutes early.
Father, thank you so much for today. Thank you for your word. Father, I thank you that in the middle of it all, you hold us. And you said, Father God, that if we simply put our trust in you, you would keep us in this hour of testing. If we stay faithful with no compromise in our life, God, we're going to stay faithful to you. And you're going to keep us in this hour of testing that comes on the whole earth to try it. And Father, I just thank you for your word. I thank you that even in the seasons of our life, we can look back and see the hard times. You were always faithful then. You will always be faithful now because you don't change.
Right.
God, thank you so much for your goodness. Bless everybody listening. And thank you for today. In Jesus' name, amen.